Hey, this is Stephen Platinum, your friend in wrestling with Platinum versus AEW Dark Elevation. Um, 6 matches, not too long of a show, and one with its fair share of competitive matches and great performances by a couple of the enhancement talents that I'm, of course, going to highlight. Here's what I find interesting about one of the things I find interesting about AEW Dark Elevation. They've kind of settled into a formal format, right? 6 matches. Um, long gone are the days where they would do sort of like spotlights of newer wrestlers and that kind of thing. And I get it. You have to figure out how to use your resources. So, what is AEW Dark Elevation? It's hard to say because they have, no pun intended, elevated the status of the regular AEW Dark on Tuesday night. They've done this by assigning a number of really good matches, by having angles that continue on AEW Dark exclusively. AEW Dark Elevation, it feels like they're finding their way to what that show is by formalizing certain aspects of it. And who knows, maybe that'll work, or maybe it will remain the show that it is. Um, but I certainly approve of a 6 match format. I think structuring it like a regular card is probably a good way to go. We did have an interesting main event as well for this. So let's get into the matches. So we had the Gun Club against Nasty Russ, T Money, and Sean Cook. And to me, one of the aspects of AEW Dark Elevation is the commentary team strongly putting over one takeaway from each match. I would not be shocked, in fact, if they got the note that they should put over one aspect of each match. And honestly, that's not the worst idea. We got to do something with the Gun Club, though. We've got them heel, and ever since they became heel, they've done nothing but pile up wins, which is what they were doing before they went heel against people of little note. In this case, Nasty Russ, T Money, and Sean Cook, who do a perfectly serviceable job here. I'll give it 3 check marks. You know how I do that in matches that are unbalanced, or you can call them enhancement matches or foregone conclusion. You get 1 check for the right group being put over, in this case, the Gun Club. Second, that they'd win in definitive fashion. These are never an issue because they don't do roll ups for the most part on Dark and Elevation. And then a 3rd check mark if the people do a good job in defeat or get a disproportionately large amount of offense. Here, they actually get a pretty good amount of offense. They don't do anything really outstanding, but you don't really have to with the Gun Club. Billy Gunn, I'm convinced, does a really good job of directing traffic in these matches. Would it behoove AEW to have a 6-person title or a trios title? I don't know the answer to that. I'm not a fan of having extra titles, and goodness knows they're already going to have the 2 women's titles, the 2 men's singles titles, and then they have male tag team champions. So I don't know about that. But that's their decision to make, isn't it? Second match, you could call it competitive because you got Nyla Rose, the Bunny, and Emi Sakura, and Riho Sky Blue, who was probably the weak link here to get pinned, and Ro Mizunami. And sure enough, that comes to pass. Sky Blue eventually costs them the fall, but does get a lot of offense. In competitive matches, do both sides look good? That's a check mark. Does one side go over definitively? And they're most certainly doing that. They're emphasizing the fact that Nyla Rose is continuing to advance in the tournament and will take on Hikaru Shida. So she gets the pin and does the lion's share of the work and is something advanced. Yes, I think the idea that Nyla Rose, the Bunny, and Emi Sakura are kind of a powerful force in the women's 6-person division. So if they continue to do those kind of matches on Dark Elevation, maybe we are doing something here with a continuing angle. The Hardy Family Office defeats the Dark Order via pinfall in another competitive match. And I thought this was, it's one of those matches that shouldn't have really worked, but really did work. And I would say it was my second favorite match on the card. And the Hardy family office definitely needed this win, let's be real. Um, did both sides look good? Yes. Did the Hardy family office win in definitive fashion? They did indeed. And was something advanced? Yeah, I think we're going to see more of the Hardy family office against the different incarnations of the Dark Order. They kind of clearly established that. So three check marks. My favorite match, even though it was an enhancement match, was Andrade and Lord Crewe. Big fan of Lord Crewe from the deathmatch world, and it's great to see the deathmatch guys get in here and show that they can work and do their stuff. Lord Crewe definitely looks good. Andrade is back to form. It's amazing how that works, where often wrestlers go to a new fed and at first don't really catch, but then they wrestle the right opponent and it really sets them straight and puts them on that path to greatness that they were destined to be on. Andrade is definitely there. Has a good little match with Lord Crewe, who does everything that he's asked to do, sells big. He's there to base for Andrade's big spots. It's a really good outing for Lord Crewe and Andrade. Three check marks most definitely. Ruby Soho and Charlie Cruel. Charlie Cruel, who's made a couple of appearances for AEW and looks good here. Ruby Soho, another one who's clearly hit her stride and is loving being there. The story of this thing that the commentators are putting over, how over Ruby Soho is, which is an interesting take. It's definitely true. I just think it's interesting that they're going on. Ruby Soho has so many assets, but they're definitely trying to emphasize the fact that she is over, which is true. She wins in definitive fashion with her finisher, three check marks. And then we got our main event, John Silver and QT Marshall. QT Marshall, who is putting everybody and their mother over, and has a good little match with John Silver here. We'll call it competitive. Do both sides look good? Absolutely. Does John Silver win definitively? Yes, he wins with the spin doctor, which I was hoping to see, and it definitely happened. It had a real old school kind of match feel, which was really nice, actually. And a third one was something advanced. Yeah, I think though the story is indirect and maybe not one that they wanted to be in the forefront, but it was in the forefront of my mind, which is that the factory has completely fallen apart.